Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Matt Rhule, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, wrapping up their spring game Saturday afternoon. And Dill, if you're a Nebraska fan, what you saw just now, you have to be extremely optimistic about what you're going to see in 2024. Obviously, we'll get into Dylan Raiola, his performance, but a lot of good takeaways from what you saw. Clean football. Not many times was the football on the ground. We were looking for that as Nebraska fans heading into that spring game. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. Massive shout out to the Nebraska Cornhusker fans. Y'all know we love talking this program. The amount of support you guys continue to show to the fellas truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to hear some of your feedback, some of your guys' takeaways in the comment section. We always learn a ton from you guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with us. And Dill, I'm going to give you the tee box here. Let's not bury the lead. Let's start talking about the quarterback, specifically Dylan Raiola. What did you see out of him today?
He played the game you would have wanted to see, where, again, the ball wasn't hitting the ground a whole lot, not forcing footballs. And again, when you have that much arm talent, which was clearly on display, made a couple of like those throws you wanted to see, that deep ball, obviously to Jalen Lloyd, kind of highlighting it, but just like doing everything right. The ball was clean operations. It just was a clean game from him. And again, that's like a big deal for Nebraska because you just didn't see enough of that last year. And if you have an offense or a quarterback who can run this offense well, there's a lot of talent around him, I think.
And you go into what do we want to see from Dylan Raiola in this spring game, keeping in mind that this is a kid that should be in high school right now. We all knew he could make those throws. He throws about as good of a deep ball as you'll see in the country. That was kind of his calling card coming out of high school. We know he can make those throws. We saw that on display Saturday. But what I loved most from what I saw from Dylan Raiola is kind of what you're saying, the command of the offense. We kind of talked about if Dylan Raiola is going to be your starting quarterback in 2024 as a true freshman, it's got to have command of the offense. It's got to be what's between the ears. In the command that you saw at one point, Dill had a running back that needed to sub. He's the one telling the running back he needs to sub. You don't see that very often from guys that should be in high school. The command of the offense, the ball coming out quick. Those were some of the things that stood out to me. And Dill, one of the things,
and not being off, like always being on the same page. Like you didn't see any just routes where, a guy went one way, he threw it the other. It's just everything looked like it was running clean, how you'd want it. Aside from the one snap, I think he dropped, just a really overall clean game, which would have been the one thing, as you kind of said, would have kept him off the field because clearly he's the guy with best arm.
And two other things that I would note is, one, he throws very catchable footballs. Like he knows when to fire it in, but he also knows just when to put it right on the chest of guys, layers the football exceptionally well. And then when you're asking him to make those high-level throws into tight windows, Matt Rhule even noted it when he was in the press box. Hey, throw where only your guy can make plays on it, right? We're not putting the ball in harm's way. You had the tip ball for the interception. Outside of that, the ball, not one time that Dylan Raiola threw was in harm's way at all. He showed command of the offense, limited the turnovers, checked pretty much every single box that you wanted to see from Dylan Raiola. Now, I also want to talk about the pass catchers on the outside. This was another thing that I felt kind of got overshadowed because the quarterback play struggled so much in 2023. The pass catchers in that Nebraska offense last year, especially with some of the injuries that they had to endure, it wasn't good enough. And right, you go out and get Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nayor, but what I want to talk about is some of the young cats who were kind of thrusted into the fire in 2023. They're better because of it heading into 2024, obviously headlined by a guy like Jalen Lloyd. If you get Dylan Raiola to play like he just did on fall Saturdays in 2024 with the weapons that he has, this offense from an explosive play metric, it's going to go in the right direction awfully quickly.
And I thought you did see the impact of those two veterans on this group.
100%.
Again, especially Isaiah Nayor. Jamal Banks really didn't seem to play that much today. I'm sure, not that he's a guy who needs a spring game. Obviously, you know what he is. He's played a ton of ball. But Isaiah Nayor just making plays after the catch, running those basic routes where he's very open in making those type of plays where, again, you kind of talk about their quarterbacks took the brunt of the beating, as they should have. There was a lot of bad quarterback play for sure, but nothing really came easy. You saw a fair amount coming more easy. And again, there is that element that I don't think Nebraska was playing that healthy on the defensive side of the ball. So they were working with a lot of young guys. But again, just a cleaner offense. Guys were more open, and then making plays with the balls in their hand. Those were some of the things that stuck out to me.
A lot of different ways that this pass catching unit can hurt opposing defenses, right? You have your speedsters, guys like Jalen Lloyd, who just move a little bit differently out there. Then you have some big body possession guys like Jamal Banks. Bonner, I thought, played an extremely good game as well. Ton of different guys that can do different things, giving the offensive coordinator, kind of different ways that you can go test opposing defense. I thought that was really encouraging. Obviously, the explosive plays. Getting to the running back position, Emmett Johnson has been spending some time in the weight room. That dude looks like he's put on at least 15 pounds from last year. Dante Dowdle, and we've talked about this. How does Matt Rhule want to run the football? Downhill, physical. Dante Dowdle is going to be that guy for Nebraska in 2024.
In a little bit more explosive than probably what you have in Gabe Irving, but again, run kind of a similar way. Just I felt like a little more nimble in the hole, a little bit better making that one cut and going. So again, I think exactly kind of what you said. I thought it was nice to see him rattle off that big run towards the end, I think in the second half. But again, those sort of missing pieces that you had, guys are stepping up. The transfers that they brought in are starting to hit. Again, the guys around them, some of those younger guys developing too. So, I mean, you got a kind of interesting thing going on with Nebraska. I'm really interested to see what they can kind of
the Nebraska team in general, specifically the offensive playmakers, it's a way deeper group than it was in 2023. I mean, you were having to play true freshmen at the wide receiver position. Emmett Johnson was a guy that probably started the Nebraska season in 2023 as a scout team running back. Gabe Irvin, Ramir Johnson go down. Anthony Grant having problems with ball security. And Emmett Johnson was forced to play a ton of football in 2023. Now you look at the wide receiver and say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that you feel good about as pass catchers. Then the running back room, and we saw multiple guys look like you feel good about them toting the rock. And then, Dill, this is where I'm most excited for. And it's easy to talk about Dylan Raiola. It's easy to talk about the playmakers you added. The offensive line is going to be a good unit in 2024. And that was one of the things that you talk about what went wrong in the Scott Frost era. The line of scrimmage play was probably the first thing up, right? The development of those big bodies wasn't where you needed it to be. This offensive line is deep as well. You didn't have a lot of guys. I don't think Ben Scott played. Benhart didn't play. You felt pretty good about what the two deep looked like on the Nebraska offensive line. And that's another thing that you talk about, the recipe for Matt Rhule, where he wants this Nebraska program to go. Line of scrimmage play, offensive line, I thought had a phenomenal day as well.
And especially seeing some of the young guys filling some slots. I mean, Tyler Knack playing at that right tackle spot. I'm sure it's going to be Bryce Benhart this year, but I mean, he's taking those steps forward. He looks like a guy who, when he's playing in the Big Ten, is going to be at the level you need him to be. I thought Gunnar Gatula, a younger guy, also stepping up. Sam Sledge. So some of those younger guys, when they got their chance to get in the mix, I mean, they're coming along in the way they needed to come along. And again, that's something we even talked about especially towards the end of the Frost era with guys like Cochran or Prohaska.
Yeah.
You just saw talent early in their career. And then it was well, is this the year that we're going to have really good left tackle play? You didn't necessarily see it. I mean, I think you love the way those young guys are kind of developing just in the way you thought they needed to be, especially the way Matt Rhule coaches.
On the offensive side of the football, the depth chart is just in such a better spot than it was in 2023. Now, going to the defense, hard to evaluate the defense in totality because a lot of your guys that are going to be your dudes in 2024 weren't playing. I want to start on the defensive line where, again, no Ty, no Nash, no Jamari Butler, no Cam or Principal either. I mean, those are your 5 guys that are probably going to be playing the most amount of snaps. Dill, if there's one question that I have about this team, it's probably the depth on the defensive line. But you saw some guys kind of emerge and kind of feel decent about what the 2 and 3 deep look like along the line of scrimmage for this defense as well.
I'm kind of with you. That was the one takeaway I had was okay, I know they have 2 hammers up top with Nash Hutmacher and Ty Robinson. And then Riley Van Poppel, I thought, had a pretty solid game. But again, you kind of look when you want to probably be able to throw at least 2, maybe even 3 defensive lines, especially on the interior end. That's probably the one place I think Nebraska probably needs to continue to build, because you did see that those offensive lines are kind of going to work for most of that game. I thought they were running the ball pretty effectively no matter who was out there. And again, offensive line, you want to see them develop and play really well, but I think you maybe at times wanted to see a little bit more of a competitive battle with that defensive line and some of those younger guys. playing a little bit better.
And you saw some flashes like Carroll Jackson, who probably still needs to get some weight on if he's going to consistently play on the inside. That kid who was he's going to be a redshirt freshman from St. John Bosco.
Rhule he looks like how you want him to look, big, physical. But again, it's just playing a little more consistently, play in and play out, because there were too many plays where on double teams, guys just getting moved way far off the ball. That, to me, it's like the one place I think they need to build. And it's not going to be probably an issue this year just because of what you have with Hutmacher and Robinson and, frankly, how many snaps those guys can give you in a game. But it's for the future. I think that's probably the one position I looked at like, okay, this is probably, and I'm sure Matt Rhule knows it too, and they'll go to work to address it. But that depth in that interior is probably where they got to work.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, you go to the linebacker spot, and a couple of guys, you kind of know what you're getting, right? John Bullock, Javen Wright. True freshman early enrollee Vincent Shavers is going to be a hard guy to keep off the field. At that linebacker spot, it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with Dylan Raiola at the quarterback spot. Yes, you got to be physically ready to play Big Ten football. You also have to be ready between the ears in terms of seeing what's in front of you, making the good run fits. Vincent Shavers played some very good football as a guy that was committed to the Miami Hurricanes for most of that cycle, late flip to Nebraska. I think they found a gem down there in the state of Florida. I think he's going to play some really good football. And then you look at the back end, a couple of guys kind of showing out. Ethan Nation was a guy you can just tell that he is going to have an extremely bright future. Again, not totally sure if it's going to be in 2024 because you have some really good football players in that secondary for Nebraska. It's the recipe that we've talked about with Matt Rhule. You heard him. Not many Power 5 coaches talk about redshirt like Matt Rhule always talks about. Like, this is going to be a developmental program where we're going to work with guys for 3 to 4 to 5 years to get them ready, whether it's in 2024, whether it's in 2025, 2026. They got a ball player and a guy like Ethan Nation, a couple other guys as well standing out.
Yeah, and I will agree. Like, that was the hard unit to kind of evaluate just because you didn't really see any of the starters for the most part. You saw Buford come in, tackling the way that we kind of expected. Just physical, tough in the whole sort of play. So, again, I think he's going to be a big part of it. I thought he looked really good. Bly Hill, before the injury, looked like he had some good moments too. So, you do have some guys coming through there. But, again, we kind of know this secondary is really good. You just flip on the tape from last year. They're returning a good chunk of it and a second year under what Tony White's doing. I don't have any worry about the Nebraska secondary, even as much as like maybe the score makes you think, oh, well, they were giving up a lot of pass yards, but it just, you didn't have your horses going.
Well, that's my takeaway. And if you were to kind of overarching takeaway for myself about this Nebraska spring game, is I wanted to see the offense move the football. Like, I don't have many questions about this defense at year 2 under Tony White. Again, a lot of your contributors did not play play this afternoon. You saw the offense move the football methodically with a bunch of different quarterbacks. The defense, you had some guys step up, but that's not going to be the Nebraska defense that you see in 2024. I have zero question marks about this Nebraska defense being an elite unit in 2024. The question marks were on the offensive side of the football. They answered those questions. A lot of them, as much as you could answer those questions during the spring game. A lot of reasons to be excited about 2024. Y'all know the boys are fired up. Going to give a lot of good content during the summer, breaking down some of the stuff on the film as well. Appreciate the Nebraska fans for rocking with the fellas again. Thoughts and prayers to you guys in the state of Nebraska with their tornadoes. We're thinking about you guys. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section as well. And we'll talk to y'all later.